Hello, this is Mrs. Samuels. Today we are going to do a video on how to graph equations written as y equals mx plus b. So this is example 1. It is y equals negative 2x plus 1. So just to review, y equals mx plus b. The very first step that you do is the b, which is your y-intercept. The very next step you do, which will be the m is your slope. And we know slope as rise over run. So the very first thing I'm going to look at is my b. So looking at this equation, I see that the b is whatever's not attached to the x. So my b in this case would be 1. So on your graph, you will then start on the y-axis because it's the y-intercept. You'll start at the y-axis and you're going to go to positive 1. So this is where your first point is. So this was your first step. Your second step is your slope. Slope is rise over run. So my slope is negative 2 over 1. We always know that we could put a 1 underneath any integer. So what we need to do is from this point, we're going to go down to positive 1. So from here, I'm going to go down 2 and then go in the positive direction 1. So I'm going to do that one again. Negative 2 over 1. So from this point, always start from this point. You're going to go down 2, 1, 2. You're going to go in the positive direction 1. And then you can connect your dots from here. And always use a straight edge. This is really, really helpful. And I'm doing this with one hand, so it's a little bit off. We need to make sure that even this is off too much. So don't even let your graph be off that much. So this is the first example. So we've just graphed this equation. Example 2. Let me put some tape down here. So we're still going to do y equals mx plus b. This is still going to be our first step, which is the y-intercept. This is still going to be our second step, which is our slope. Rise over run. So the very first thing to do is find whatever's not attached to the x. So I see here that there's nothing over here. In math, when there is nothing, we just use the number 0. So in this case, on the y-intercept, it'll be 0. So on the y-axis, I'm going to just put my first at 0. From here, I'm going to use my slope, and that's whatever's smushed up against the x. This is your rate of change. This is 1/4. So this means that I'm going to go up 1 over 4. Up 1 over 4. And I'm going to do that from my point. So go up 1 over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Over 4. And you just keep going as much as you want to. And then you would connect these dots as well. And I'm not even going to try with my one hand because it was looking nasty last time. Okay, so this would be your graph for this one. All right, example number 3. As always, y equals mx plus b. Your b is your first step. That's your y-intercept. Your m is your second. That's your slope. And that's rise over run. So my first step is whatever is not attached to the x. That's going to be my y-intercept. And I see that that's positive 4. So on the y-axis, I'm going to go to positive 4 and put my first point there. This is my y-intercept. This is my starting point. From here, I'm going to use whatever's attached to the x. I see a negative, and then I see a 3. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to ignore the x, and I'm just going to write down all of these things and see what happens. So I see a negative sign. I see a 3 on the bottom. If there's something like this, we always know that we can put a 1 on top of that. So now I'm going to go, the negative can either go with the top or it can go with the bottom. I always like to put it with the top. So I'm going to go down 1, positive 3. Down 1, positive 3. So from my starting point, I'm going to go down 1, positive 3. Down 1, positive 3. Down 1, positive 3. The more dots that you draw, the more accurate your line will be. So then I would take my ruler or the side of my notebook or an extra piece of paper and use it as a straight edge to draw my perfect line. One more example. This is example 4 for y equals mx plus b. We're going to start with our y equals mx plus b. This is your first step, which is your y-intercept. This is your second, our slope, and we always do that as rise over run. So looking at this equation, I see that my first step is my y-intercept. That's whatever's not attached to the x. I see that that is -7. So on my graph, on my y-axis, I'm going to go all the way down to -7. My second step is my slope, which is attached to the x. So this is 6. Anytime we have an integer, we can put a 1 under it. So I'm going to go up 6 over 1, up 6 over 1. So from my starting point, I'm going to go up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1. And then I would take my ruler or whatever I'm using for my straight edge and draw a perfect line. All right, guys, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.